again for joining us for the first session of our webinar, AEC Automation Success Stories. I'm Yasha Moradi, your host for today, and today we're going to basically do a little bit of introduction, what each of us are doing, what is Bimondis, and we jump directly into the main presentation, which will be presented by our expert guest, Christopher. And then afterwards, we can basically open it for open round of Q&A session. To give you a brief introduction, my name is Yashar. I'm a civil engineer with almost 30 years of experience in software development. So basically, I started with software development, then went to the university for civil engineering, and fell in love with GIS and locational data, and been busy creating solutions, software solutions for AEC industry and GIS and locational industry, and I've been involved in a couple of companies which you may recognize. Were at Navis as a tech lead, and Scoperty for PropTech, and Claudio for Earth observation and GIS solutions. What we do at Bimondis is basically we started Bimondis to contribute to the digital and sustainable transformation of our industry. And we all know that this is a huge task that all of us are trying to fulfill this transformation, and it needs massively higher use of modern technologies and methodologies and processes. And what we come into the picture is that we start where the change happens with the people. So we have offerings for upskilling and training knowledge workers in the construction industry, and we also have a network of freelance experts where basically you can involve them on demand on project by project basis whenever you need them. And basically this network brings everybody together. We can also brainstorm together, and it's showed us that we are on the right track when we saw that people are basically tapping into this network, and we see a lot of good synergies within the network. And we also basically started with this coding and automation school for AEC industry, because we realized based on all the discussions that we had with our experts that the industry needs such a movement. And additionally, we have some related services which we fulfill basically with our network and with our knowledge of the digitalization. But feel free to go on the website and take a look. But most importantly, our special guest today, and we're very honored to have Christopher Fligare. He comes originally from Sweden, but lives now in Germany, in Nuremberg, and is actually one of our valued experts in our network, and one of the fathers of the AEC Coding and Automation School for Revit automation courses. He is an Autodesk 40 under 40 champion of construction, and has years of hands-on experience in coding and automation. So welcome on board, Christopher.
Thanks, Ashar. Hi everybody.
Hi. Thank you for accepting to join us today, and thank you for all the heavy lifting that you're doing anyway for the school. So could you say a couple of words to the basically the content of this session, then we jump to the presentation afterwards.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to talk a bit about the project that I'm involved in, and I have held a similar talk before, but I felt like it was a good idea to bring this on and talk about this project because we use a lot of automation in it, and I think it ties in very well with what we're building in terms of trainings. So I think it's very poignant to kind of what we're doing, I think. Yeah.
Glad that you're here. Are you going to share your screen now?
Yeah, sure. I'll just jump straight into it. There we go. So just as a kind of setup here, last year I held a Autodesk University talk with Frater Gun about this project that we were part of that were kind of using automation in a very big degree. So this is actually available on Autodesk University on the website, and there's a lot more than what I'm going to talk about because I'm talking a bit in kind of a bit different terms, so to say, than what we did back then last year. So please have a look there also in case you're interested in learning more about this. But also shout out to Frat, he's a very cool guy. So if you run across him, it's a very nice dude. And I was thinking kind of as a setup for this that, I would like to kind of inspire everybody here to think about your own projects and kind of use the examples I'm going to showcase to kind of think about how can you automate your projects, and also kind of show how powerful it can be in many ways, and very generally it's very powerful. I'm sure everybody has a kind of an understanding about how good automation can be, just to highlight that. And then also we made an ROI, like return on investment, on this kind of work we did for this project. So just to showcase kind of how that can be used to kind of evaluate the project and kind of the efforts and how we tackle that. But I mean, you can do that in many different ways, right? But just to kind of I don't know, highlight that, I guess you could say. So I'll go into a bit about the background of Bravida, the company that I'm working for, and the project itself, which is an infrastructure project. It's a road tunnel in Stockholm, in the center of Stockholm. I'll talk a bit about kind of the goals we had for the projects, and also the challenges we had and the solutions that we have found and are working towards. So Bravida is a contractor that's based in the Nordics. You see here a bit some numbers of how big they are. They are quite big, and they do everything from planning to installation and also to service. So they kind of take care of the whole life cycle of the building, and it's mostly in installations. So it's like electrical, ventilation, cooling, that kind of stuff. But they're mostly the service and installation part of it. So they do not do super much design, but they do some of it, just as a kind of a background there. And the contract then that they got 2018, which is then still ongoing, is a 21-kilometer bypass link. So it's a road tunnel, or 18 kilometers of road tunnel. The rest is surface road, but it's basically to alleviate the kind of congestion issues of center of Stockholm. So it is a tunnel, a big part of the way, and there's 140,000 vehicles they expect in about 10 years ish time frame. And the project is quite big, so it is the biggest MEP project in Sweden history as of date. So it is quite big, and Bravida then has 2 out of 5 contracts. So there are 5 installation contracts split into different parts, and Bravida has 2 of them, which include power lighting, HVAC, wastewater, and firefighting. And kind of to summarize that, basically it's lighting, it's power, it's ventilation, and it's sprinkler, I guess you could say, to kind of give a bit of an image in everybody's head what this is. And it's this world's 2nd deepest urban tunnel, so it is quite a big project, so to say, in kind of global terms. And when we started this, we had, of course, many different goals about what we wanted to do. In general, of course, just a perfect project. I mean, if you summarize it like that, but you could break it down into 3 different things. So it's informed decisions. So we wanted to have informed decisions about, we don't want to make decisions that are based on either wrongful information or data. And also we want to be able to make them, be sure that we're making the right ones and have kind of the support for that. And then the design process, wanted that to actually be efficient. So that's kind of the big part of that project that I feel is very relevant to, I think, to everybody listening. And then, of course, the perfect execution is kind of how we get that to the end user of Bravida installation team, and how we kind of get that onward, so to say, all that data and all of that design that we made. But of course, so the design process is kind of the big part here. But of course, there are automations everywhere, right? You can automate something that you click a mouse and that can be automated, but you can also automate how data talks to each other, right? And you can automate not only how you produce a model or a drawing, you can also automate how, I don't know, a meeting gets created, or say meeting notes or something like that, right? There are many parts of a project that can be automated. And if we kind of drill down a bit more into them, like why do we have these goals? It's basically informed decisions. We want to have very transparent stakeholder management. So we want everybody to have a lot of information so that they know what's happening. We want to have a single source of truth. So we want actually one point where we know that this is the right information. We don't want that spread over many different parts with many different, versions that are kind of true equally. So we want to work from one point, and then that should cascade down to everybody who needs it, or every system that needs it, right? And also we want to have data-fueled project stages. So we want to actually kind of finish a stage with the data we need for the next one, so to say. And the efficient design process, it's a lot about automation. So we want to actually have a lot of automated processes. We want to have operational efficiency. So we want to have work efficiently, like the actual modeler should not do work that could be automated, so to say. And also, of course, we want to do it quickly, and with a very small and nimble team is very advantageous for many reasons. And looking at the last kind of goal, we would like to have very few amounts of errors in the end product, or like when we actually do installations, right? We also want to have higher safety for the people doing the installation. We want to have a sustainability impact, and also to have a communication that works. And we think that can also be done through smart tooling and automated processes. But when we started this, we asked around. So we asked around a lot of design firms to kind of help us out, because, as I said, like Bravida is not a design firm; it's a contractor. So asked around, but basically everybody said that they couldn't help us, or they were like, "Yeah, we can help you, but it's gonna cost you a lot, or it's gonna take this huge amount of time, and these parts we need like 10 people for this part and 20 people for this part," or whatever. It was something that we felt was a bit unnecessary, or like not optimized, I guess you could say. We felt that we could do that better. So whatever, okay, we'll do it, was what we said. But then the question is then how? Like, how do we get to the goals that we need to, right? And we can break that down and kind of look at how we tackle that. So we understood that to have informed decisions, we need to understand the project, we need to have access to information, and we need to have easy tooling. So we need people to be able to actually use the tools that has the information they need, and not ask, one colleague that knows the tool that can help them get the information. We want to kind of democratize that. And for the design, we would like to have automated processes, like I was talking about, and also information-rich models. So we want to have, if we have a lot of information on these models, then we can actually do a lot of more automation. And not only that, but we can also get that information to later stages, and also to other processes, right? So it all kind of ties into each other, and we need to get that information down because the client needs information, for example, about what we're doing. And classically, you would lose a lot of information between design and construction, but since everything is kind of under the same roof, of course, that's even more important that we don't do that. We don't lose any information. And for the perfect execution, we need to learn as we go. When we actually start installing, we need to be able to realize what we're doing right and wrong, have some feedback about that. We need to be able to course correct, and that's a big part, and also a challenge to be able to not build very strict ways of doing things, and being able to kind of nimbly pivot to another solution or another workflow, or choose other paths than the one we had maybe a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago that we thought we would go. And another one is to give installers what they need. So we need to actually provide them with what they need on the field. And this is how we reach the solution of informed decisions. This is, like they call it, a spaghetti monster. But we don't have to go into detail about this. We can look at it on kind of a more general overview. So as a center, in order to have informed decisions, then to have these data information that everybody can use, we're building an APS platform, or we're using the APS platform to build kind of a software product or whatever you could call it. So APS, previously called Forge, is a collection of APIs that Autodesk offers that can communicate with their services, basically. And connected to that, we have SharePoint, which has a lot of information connected to it. It has time scheduling, time plan, it has the estimation, and it has the procurement system. So we bring all that information into SharePoint to get it onwards to APS. And the reason for that is that they are not cloud-based services, right? So to get that to our platform. And we also have ACC connected to that we use as kind of our on-site software, as you could say, where you can communicate with documents, look at documents and things like that. I'll go into more detail about how that works. But there we have DWGs, we have Civil 3D files, we have Navisworks, we have Revit, and Revit is our kind of main modeling software. And then we also have Autodesk Build, which is then the interface to the end user, so to say, where they can interact with that. We also have a database of logistical data, and also a requirement database, so about the requirements in the project. So this we all kind of try to combine into one place where we could go. And you could look at it from a different view. You can look at it as kind of levels. And here you see kind of a prototype of what we are building. So first level models, right? You can see them here, but then we also connect them time and cost, like I was talking about. So we can connect them to these models and connect them to the objects. And then we also have documentation from ACC. So that can be PDFs, for example. And then we have commissioning data, which are forms, and you fill out a form or a checklist, you can also call it, which is then filled out with information that you as you're kind of taking it into, as you're installing it, so to say. And then we also, like I was talking about, logistic and requirements are two other layers on this kind of pyramid. And this we're building then to provide data and information to the stakeholders of the project. This one is turning a bit. I don't know how, but basically it's 3D. There we go. So it's a 3D model with data connected to it, right? So which gives a lot of possibilities to analyze, because you can view data instead of a row in an Excel. You can get better information about what is happening, in the real world, so to say. Going to the design process, we had some initial challenges, and well, there's still challenges, right? One is that we need to create a lot of objects, and they need to be unique. So it's 100,000 unique components, which means that depending on where they are in the world, so to say, like in the model, they need to have a unique ID and have information about where they are placed and what type of component they are. We need to create many times 18 kilometers of piping cable trays and more. And that's, along the tunnel, for example, there's sprinkler, so that needs to be created. And a big problem with this is that the tunnel pipe is inclined, and it's not a steady incline and decline. So if it was always 1 degree, then it would be easy. You just copy everything, turn it a bit, and then you're done. But the problem is that it always changes, so we can't copy paste stuff. And if you try to kind of tilt things in Revit, then maybe you know that it's not super easy to do. You need to kind of have some workarounds for that. So it's a big problem, a very big issue. And another one is that we need to handle changing requirements. So if we create 18 kilometers of piping and then the client says that no, it's not in this way that you did before, you need to change it in this other way. And now we need to replace 18 kilometers of piping. That doesn't work, right? So we need to be able to have a system that can actually handle that, and we can do changes very rapidly without having to recreate the whole design, the whole model. And another challenge is that we need to have custom data to kind of coordinate around. So we need to be able to place data that is dependent on, for example, where something is placed in the tunnel, height from ground and things like that. Because in this tunnel, we can't have, like traditionally when you do an MEP project, you would have a building that has kind of like concrete levels maybe, and in Revit you have a level that's on 2.5 meters above zero, whatever. But that doesn't work in a tunnel. You can't have that because it goes up and down, and then you would have to have a level at every centimeter or something, right? It doesn't work. So we need to be able to handle that too. So there was a lot of issues and or challenges, I guess you could say. And in the beginning, we made kind of a decision that we would like to use Revit because we know Revit and we have used it before. So we took that decision that we're going to use Revit and Dynamo, which was very new to us back then when we started this. And I'll show you some examples now how we're using Dynamo. So first one here is that just to set the scene, sprinklers are modeled in sections. And so every section has a size and has a number of sprinklers connected to it. And it is important to know where this section is in the world and in the model. So here you see them in red, which means that they have no information on them. And when you add information, they turn white. So just to see that the information gets on these sections. And we're using here Dynamo Player to select the measurement that we get from the builders. And then we can actually read that, and it can figure out where this section is in the world. So it can add and say, okay, it's on this X and Y level, and it's on this kilometer mark, which is very good because to do that manually, it would be quite difficult. And also to actually then propagate the change would be very difficult. If you imagine that you remove a section in the middle and now every single section upstream need to have, minus 20 or something, and then going manually, it doesn't work. Right? So very important to have that. And another example here is that you can create, here are like filtered views. And this one is actually creating filters on them and like doing a temporary hide and isolate and things like that. And you see in the top right there, you press a button and it happens, right? And the very cool thing about Dynamo is that you can have very granular control compared to what you would have kind of with vanilla Revit, if you say. So you can create the type of filters or the coloring that you want depending on precisely what you want, and very advanced kind of logics if you want that. And here's another example of my colleague Artyom's that made an automatic lighting fixture placement based on a line. So there's a line from the DWG from the client. You see him here create hundreds, maybe even thousands of lighting fixtures here in a second that are actually aligned to, you can see there's actually a tilt on it. And it's aligned to the line that comes from the builder, which is quite powerful also because we just put an offset toward this line. And if something changes, let's say that the tunnel has a new design or something, or let's say that the requirements change, that okay, it needs to be not 2.5 but 2.7 meters from the ground. We just rerun this and edit a parameter. So we had a lot of good things as a result from all this automation. And we did a ROI, like I was talking about, and we looked at kind of what would be the case if we used other methods than what we're doing. So looking at AutoCAD, we kind of expected it to be about 18 modelers full time sitting and modeling in order to achieve the same result. And with just moving from like AutoCAD to Revit, we would have to have 11 modelers. So it's already about 50% kind of reduction. Now, these numbers are not like, it's not 100%. The time is a bit different. They're not working 100% here, for example, but for the kind of peak deliveries, we would have to have 11 then on board, so to say. And going with the Revit Dynamo combination, which we did, we saw about 87% reduction in like time spent on tasks. So, and then like 6, not even full-time modelers were needed then. So it's quite powerful, and I think it's quite, it's important to have that in mind, when you're choosing a way to work, a workflow that you're going to use, that it can be quite good to choose one that allows for a lot of automation, which we did. But you can also think about what are the effects, right? What we saw was that, of course, less people getting more work done, or producing more kind of higher quality models and information. And another thing we saw was that as we started this, we already have that mindset, and we're working with all these scripts. So it's quite easy to just add a new one for a thing we didn't think about 2 years ago, but that we now need. So when you have kind of that mindset from the beginning, it's quite powerful for kind of the future. And when everything is possible, everything is possible. So what I mean with this is that, like, when you have that mindset that you're okay, we can solve this with just a script or something, then everything gets a lot more easier, because you already kind of have the framework to find the solution, right? But then the question is, then why should you? Like, of course, these are good reasons, but one point is that you can take on projects that were too big, because now you have more you have more production, or production's maybe the wrong word, but you can do more with less. And another one is that you can do things you couldn't do before. So for example, creating designs from a tunnel that's not linear was on this kind of level where it wouldn't really be possible before. And another one is, of course, increase your quality, which I think is a big point, in that when you have scripts, everybody has the same workflow, which is good for some reasons. For example, that you know what to expect as a result, right? So it can help you in that way too. And another one is to propagate the workflows that you find very good, because you can just share a script and teach someone how to use that script, and now they can use it too, without having to, if you have a very complicated manual process, that takes a lot of time to teach, instead of pressing a button, literally. And then the question is, what should you automate? So one thing I like to recommend is boring workflows. Another one is time-consuming workflows, and also, like I was talking about previously, impossible ones. But boring ones is probably the easiest to get started, because then you have something to inspire you that you don't want to do this anymore. And the last goal we had in the project then was perfect execution then. So we used ACC for this, and here are some kind of videos of us filling in forms. So forms are like checklists, and these are used for the project health, to quality assure, and also for safety procedures. So you can fill this out, and you have these on hand as you're on the site. And an important part of what we wanted to build was something that can be used in an iPhone or a smartphone in general, and a tablet, things like that. And also files and issues is used for, well, files, of course, looking at files, right? But issues also to, when something goes kind of like it wasn't supposed to, then you can raise an issue, and then this gets propagated to the manager in some cases, and in some cases, to the group that are working on this. And thirdly, you can also view 3D models in it, which and also drawings connected to these models. So it's quite useful, we found, to view the models and get that information on something like a smartphone, which maybe would be quite difficult if you only had, on-premises file servers, right? So that's what we use there. Of course, it also has a browser version, so you can also look at it, the same information in the browser, which is also part of this, single source of truth that we need to communicate to the same place. And of course, this 5D model that we were talking about in the beginning, this kind of APS platform, is of course also communicating with this, right? So it's the same model you're looking at, but it's in different ways for different stakeholders, which is important. Yeah, that's that project basically. There are some resources I guess we'll share this later, and you can get the links and read a bit more about all these things. Yeah, that's what I had, I think.
Perfect. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Christopher. You basically
Thank you,
touched
sure.
on a lot of pain points that all of us or most of us have experienced.
Right.
Doing things consistently, doing things more efficient, doing things more automated, and to the level of precision that we all love as engineers and architects. So to achieve that, and I actually see a lot of parallels to the industries that I've been involved in, like GIS. So there we started exactly like this, and then now you can't imagine doing anything without scripts. And basically, this surge of all the tools with low script, no script paradigm also removes this barrier from you need to be a Python hacker to be able to write a script to now what we see in Dynamo. You can basically put two nodes and drag a pipeline between them and set some parameters and you're done if you know what you're doing. Yeah, so I'm interested to know what's the stage of the project right now. So is it in?
Yeah, well, it's ongoing. We're installing, or Bravida is installing now. So it's ongoing. This APS platform is work in progress still. There is a beta that I'm working on to kind of get every kind of data in there and showcase it in a way, because it's funny. The easy part is getting the data there, but the difficult part is actually showing it in a way that matters or makes sense. It's quite funny. Didn't realize that, or like that was it's a fun thing. But yeah, so that's that part of it. But the actual automation of the actual design process, that is very much automated, and it's quite funny because everybody has a lot of more. Their kind of mindset has changed. So because instead of saying like, oh, that's not possible, okay, we need to hire two people to do this or whatever, the mindset is a bit more, when someone is sitting and looking at something, like, okay, can't we automate this? It's that mindset, which is nice, because then it's more pushed towards actually doing that, and people are a bit more kind of free in what they can imagine happen with the data, and they see it in that way instead. So I think it's good for a project as a whole.
That's the spirit that we need in the AEC
Right.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where would you say that somebody should start if they want to start with automation?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dynamo is or similar, like these visual scripting languages, or they are quite. You can get quite far with them, which is a very cool thing about them. So you start off, like get this name from this thing and add it to this other thing or something like that. Select all sprinklers in my project, things like that, right? That's maybe where you start, but it's often quite a tall ceiling on them. So, for example, Dynamo, you could also use Python in it if you reach that level where you may need that. And there's a lot of third-party developers for that. So you can also use whatever code they wrote. You can also implement that in your own solution. So I'd say that's the easiest way to get started. And then of course, I mean, the sky's the limit. You can, if you really love it and you feel like you want to do more, you can get more deep into it. But I think just clicking that dynamo button in Revit, for example, and then new, and then you start playing around. I think that's good. And like I said, like boring workflows are maybe the best ones to start with, because then you feel very good, and especially if you think that if it's something that you're clicking several things at one, for a long time, things like that, like, okay, let's get that away so I can do something more fun.
So I'm good with coding, but for me the rule of thumb is if you have to do it more than 3 times, you write code for it.
Right.
I think there are a lot of day-to-day tasks that somebody can automate, and basically that's now I'm talking to the audience. That's why we started the coding and automation school, and actually Christopher helped us a lot with the concept of our Revit automation courses. Um, we basically have now 4 training sets that are available on our website. You can take a look, and they are all very hands-on, very practical oriented, and they basically bring you from point of I know what BIM is, I know what my tools are, to uh, what to automate, when to automate, how to automate, and where do you need different tools. And these are all basically set up in a very hands-on form, and you get a ton of projects. We even listed all the projects that you get to work with, and the main goal is that on the next day after this course, after this training, you go to your office, and you can reuse some of the scripts that you had in this training, or you know exactly how to write a script for that specific problem that you have in mind. And this is basically where we started, and we are in preparation of some additional trainings. Rhino Grasshopper is already being prepared. Civil 3D is in the pipeline. Archicad and GDL all plan. We have basically an automation series where you can imagine each of these will have the similar structure like automation in Revit, so 4 to 5 core trainings. Then we have coding series, which are more towards people who are more familiar with coding or want to start with coding and get a little bit deeper, like with APS, add-in development, IFC OpenShell, IFC JS, and so forth. And then we have data series, which are basically ETLs like FME, GIS and BIM integration, machine learning trainings. And yeah, so our plan is to fill it as we go and add additional trainings to our set. So, and with that, I open the stage for Q&A. I saw that we have 2 questions, I think, in the chat, but generally, if anybody has a question, you can raise hands and I can unmute you. But the first one is from Niels, and he asks, do you think it is possible to reuse most of the scripts, algorithms for your next project?
Yeah, definitely, and that's also something in the as I'm kind of planning the course to make that possible and to have that mindset from the beginning. That's also what we're doing. That you wanna if you're building something, let's say that you want to read information, then maybe you don't build the filter in the script that says I want to read all the information from only sprinkler objects, right? Maybe instead you say, hey, you say which object you want to read the information from, and then you get the information, right? Because now then you just use the exact same script and you open another project and now you choose something else, right? So that's
exactly.
That's what
so
we're doing in the
parameterize then the methods that you already created, so that basically people can change the parameter, but the concept behind it, the logic is the same.
Exactly. So that's something in the trainings we'll get into and kind of
All right.
learn.
And um, Johannes asks if we have. Yeah, so we are recording it. We're not recording it in Teams because of quality issues. We're recording this video, and it will be then posted on our YouTube channel. If you just search on YouTube for Bimondis, or I can send you as well the link to the video once it's up and running. Then you can watch it there. So, sure thing. Any other questions? You can just raise your hand if you want, and I can unmute you. All right. I think you did a decent job. Nobody has
Yeah, I hope
questions.
so.
Yeah. Then thank you very much for joining us today. Just a quick note: we plan also another webinar soon to be there. So for 2nd of November, we have Sakib, and Sakib is actually one of the trainers in our school, which is preparing Grasshopper and Rhino, and he is very experienced with prefab and basically design to fabrication, and has very interesting experience which he wants to share with us. So make sure to basically join the next one, and if you want, we can also inform you by email. But anyway, on LinkedIn, you will get the information if you follow Bimondis. And if you have any questions, need any assistance, just feel free to contact me or one of my co-founders on LinkedIn, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Yashar,
Tim.
and thanks everybody.